Welcome to the Guys and Bets podcast, Bald Bets and Beyond edition. I am Kris Abbott. This is week 8 in the NFL, week 9 in college football. This is episode 8 of Bald Bets and Beyond. And it's not just me, obviously, as always, joined by Harry Gagnon, joining us from Arizona. Harry, how you doing today?
What's shaking, Kris? How's everything?
Everything's pretty good, man. I think I'm finally over the brutal beat that I took on Sunday in the NFL. I couldn't get anything right. Had a little bit of an NHL down a little bit. Couldn't win for a couple of days. That's sports betting, though. Like, when you bet 365 days a year, you're going to run into that. But other than that, man, things are pretty good. It's almost Halloween.
Yeah, first tonight is the Suns season opener, so I will be attending that tonight. That's why I'm got my orange put on very proudly today, going to the Kings Suns tonight. And like you said, it's almost Halloween. I've got back-to-back Halloween parties, one this Saturday and then the following Saturday in California. Actually, Cousin Sal has a Halloween party every year at his house, so I will be attending that this year. I didn't make it last year, but Cousin Sal has, like I said, Halloween party. I'll be attending that the following week. Now I know it's a couple days after Halloween, but Halloween's in the middle of the week this week, this year. So he's having it on the weekend there, so it still should be a riot. It's always a fun time.
So are you the kind of guy that gets really creative with the costumes you dress up? But I'm not big on that, to be honest with you.
No, I mean, I appreciate it if someone does. Yeah. I totally do. I really do. But, a friend of mine is going as Fred Flintstone. So me and my girlfriend will be attending. Like I said, she'll be coming with me. So with my buddy being Fred Flintstone, I figured it'd be funny if I went as Barney Rubble, and because I'm usually his sidekick anyways. So I'm going to go as Barney Rubble, and she's going to go as Betty. So that should be pretty.
Yeah, she'll make a good Betty. Andrew will make a good Betty. Now we're talking about her on the podcast. She's going to love that, right?
Yeah, of course. Oh, she loves it when we mention her. So she'll, it'll be good.
Make sure when you go to the game tonight, you tell her I said hello. She's such a sweetheart.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't know how you got that lucky, to be completely honest. That might be the biggest win you've ever had.
It might be, bud. It might be, no doubt.
So yeah, that's exciting. Yeah, Joe had a pick for that game. He's got the Kings -1.5. Now, will you bet on the game when you go there tonight?
I probably will. I saw the total at what, 232. Is that what you got?
I think
that last night.
Yeah, let me double check. I can tell you real quickly. The total for the NBA, 16 games tonight. It's busy, and that's one of the later ones. Yeah, that is 232.5, and the money's coming in on the over, believe it or not.
If I'm going to the game, might as well go for the over. So I'm probably going to play a little shot on the over. I want to take the Kings too, but I'd probably leave it alone. I'll probably just take over.
All right. What do you think Phil Ivey would do if he was coming to that game tonight?
Boy, I tell you, he wouldn't be betting chump change like I do, that's for sure. Well, let me tell you, back in the day when I was working in the casinos in Vegas, another story time here. He was coming into our place and he was betting. Obviously, we had a real nice poker room, so he was playing poker there. And then he made, sort of deals with the general manager of the casino where he wanted to start betting the NBA at our property, and he wanted to start betting $20,000 a game. So had to get it okayed, Kris, and finally did get okayed. So he's betting $20,000. He'd come over from the poker room. Now, the racks of chips when you play poker. It's 100 chips in a rack. He'd come over with 2 full racks of $25,000 chips. I mean, are you kidding me? So he's betting. So for the first week, he's betting $20,000 a game, and he goes like 7-6. So he made a little bit of a profit, barely, after the vig. And he comes back the next week and decides that he's bored. He tells me he's bored betting $20,000 a game. He wants to pump it up to $50,000 a game. So now it takes a long. This is a whole thing, and he's like, "Listen, tell everybody." He tells me, he's like, "Harry, listen, I want to bet $50,000, but they got to let me have it. So if they don't let me have it, I'm walking out that door and I'm never coming back in here again. I said, I got it. No sweat, no sweat. I relay the message and everything like that. Push comes to shove after everything's said and done. He gets it approved. Okay. So he gets it approved. He's betting $50,000 a game. He goes 2-1, Chris. He bets 3 straight days, 1 game each. He goes 2-1. Our place gives him the cutoff, tells him can't take it anymore. He flips out and he's like, oh, I'm standing true to my word. He walked out the door, and as far as I know, he hasn't been back since.
Wow. Yeah.
A little scared after going 7-6 and then 2-1 and never again.
You know what? Like, it really does take money to make money, and he's obviously a phenomenal poker player. Like, something I used to do every night, like, a lot of people watch like Netflix before they go to sleep, or, everyone has something they turn on when they're going. I used to watch Poker After Dark reruns because I absolutely love that show. And watching those guys play, yeah, absolutely. Racks of $25,000 chips, that'd be absolutely nothing,
Yeah. I think they actually, in my play, they, for a little while we were taking some big money, and they made chips basically like that, pretty much just for him.
That's insane.
And then after 2-1, that was it. They pulled the plug.
Well, it's interesting because he there was a story not too long ago about him in a casino in a lawsuit that they thought he was too demanding or cheating at blackjack or something, but he was just betting big and getting on streaks,
at
right?
Blackjack, huh?
Yeah,
at blackjack, huh? That. Wow, did not hear that.
Yeah, there was an article over on our site about it on the casino side. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. They just cut him off. That was it. They said no more.
Yeah,
that was something.
It does kind of suck that he said, I want to do this, but if I'm doing it, you got to let me do it. And then after 3 games, I mean, come on.
Well, I know, but yeah, you're right. But they said okay. If they said, listen, that's too high for us. Understand? Totally understand. Don't want that action. But when you say yes and then you cut him off after 3 games, it's kind of rough.
It is, man. And there's lots of places he can go get his action. So, that's kind of short-sighted because in the long run he's going to lose money there. I got to ask then, that was $50K. That was a lot. What would be the standard limit for a bet at most sports books?
My place was a local. A couple locals I was at, and normally NBA was $4,000 a game. And totals a dime.
And that's not the big chain casinos.
Right.
Right. Gotcha.
Yeah, so,
So Phil Ivey used to like to come and hide away a little bit. You had a nice poker room, and you messed it up.
Yeah, and it's almost like I feel. You want to feel proud about where what you're doing and everything, which I did, but it's still like you also when he walks out the door, you're like, oh boy,
Yeah.
This could maybe this you let him do this, maybe he brings some of his buddies in there and they're betting big, and now you got a name for the place, but then he walks out the door. And then, you're back to square one.
Yeah, maybe a little short-sighted. And maybe the risk was just too much. Like, I can understand that if it wasn't,
Sure.
didn't have a lot of money behind it. All right. Well, that's interesting, man. I love that. I could talk about that shit all day. But
Sure.
A lot of people came here to hear us talk about football. And, of course, the NBA is starting and the NHL is underway. So let's do that. And we usually start with how we're doing in the contests. And I was so proud of myself after going 5-0 in the Circa and Bet Online. In week 7 NFL. No, what? Week 6 NFL? This is week 8, right? Yeah. Anyway, two weeks ago. Turned right back around. I went 1-3-1 in Circa last week. So any momentum I had has stalled. But you're still chipping away at the Golden Nugget contest, buddy.
You know what? I went 3-4. I'm 31-17-1. I went from 8th to 13th. Tied for 13th. I'm only a half point, if you will, out of 10th. I'm 2 points, I believe, out of 3rd and 3 points out of 1st. So I'm still there, Chris. It's just, it's a grind. After I get everybody, I'm in the routine where I'm still in it. So what I do is once they post like Saturday morning of who everybody has, I take like the top 25 guys and I just write them all down, and then I go and see how it goes and throughout the weekend. And out of like the top 25, one guy went 6-0-1. 2 went 5-2, but other than that, people went 3-4 and 4-3 and 2-5. So I didn't lose a ton of ground going 3-4, but hopefully this week bounce back and at least go 4. I got to go 4-3.
Well, that makes sense because a lot of the favorites in the NFL kind of bounce back this week. A lot of home teams kind of bounce back in the NFL this week. So,
what's funny is what in the afternoon games, the games that people needed in the contest that were in the top 25. Everybody had the Bears, and then believe it or not, nobody had the Patriots. 5 people had the Jets.
Yeah, people think they're getting too smart. I had the Bears too.
Yeah, right. You're right.
It was bad, but again, the Patriots win. They cover. The total goes under. Another shutout. Sam Darnold. Okay, before we get to the Patriots, or maybe we can tie this together. How happy were you to see Sam Darnold fail? Because I know you love when he fails.
You know what? It's not even that. It's not. I mean, believe me. You know what? I should. I was on a major league Twitter war over people who were backing Darnold on Monday and Tuesday on Monday night, Tuesday during the day. It was all day yesterday, and it's not that I hate him. It's just that I really don't think, and I've seen him in college. I just don't know what the attraction was from the get-go. I don't think he can read secondaries. I tell people if you go back in his junior year when he played in the Alamo Bowl against Ohio State and got smoked, he threw a pick six in the fourth quarter. He never had the team moving down the field. The pick six, you could read. I saw the secondary guy for Ohio State coming up and making the play and picking him up and running it back. He had plenty of turnovers in college. And I just didn't see the attraction. Like, if he would have put up the same numbers at, let's say, for example, Western Kentucky, would he have been the pick that he was and as touted as he was? Just because, I know people and critics and media have a bias maybe for USC quarterbacks, but the same thing happened to Mark Sanchez when he got drafted. He played less games than Darnold did. His career wasn't anything either. And I just don't see Darnold being able to get it done. I mean, ESPN's catching him on the sideline saying he's seeing ghosts. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's not that I hate him. It's just that I don't understand the attraction when I don't think he was that good in college.
We'll see how he does in the next couple of weeks because this New England Patriots defense can make anybody see ghosts. You
can't just hang it on him on one game. But also, it's just he also in week 1, he had a 16-point lead. He was the number 3 overall pick, and people wanted the Giants to make him the number 1 pick. 16-0 lead against the Bills, who weren't supposed to be anything this year. Down 17-16. He got the ball back. All they needed was a field goal. He couldn't even get a first down for a game-winning possible drive to kick a field goal to win it. So I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could say that Sam Darnold kickstarted this Buffalo Bills season, right? The successful year that they're having.
Right.
Speaking of the Buffalo Bills, they've got another game left against New England. But, Harry, I'm starting to wonder, this New England defense is so good, and we've talked about this before and kind of in jest, but I think now you've got to start wondering if this New England team is going to lose. And if they are, who's it going to be to beat them? Because I don't think it's going to be the Browns in Foxborough. I mean, the Ravens might give them a good game, actually, in a couple of weeks. It's not going to be the Eagles. It's probably not going to be the Cowboys. I give the Texans a shot on December 1st. It's not going to be the Chiefs. It's not going to be the Bengals. You got the Bills a couple of days before Christmas, and then the Dolphins to finish out the year. So, an undefeated season isn't out of the question here right now. Do you see a spot here where they might be beatable?
Well, I do see a spot maybe, like you said. They get the Bills get them 2 weeks before the season ends. If somehow they are undefeated then and they have everything locked up and the Bills are fighting for a wild card, maybe that's a spot where the Bills can nip them. In 2016, the Bills are the last AFC East team to beat New England, and the Bills did that in New England, 16-0. They shut out the Patriots. Now, granted, Brady didn't play that day, but Tyrod Taylor was the Bills quarterback, so nothing special there either. Jacoby Brissett was the Patriots quarterback. But the Bills are the last AFC East team to beat the Patriots. But also, I will make a little bit of so I think that might be a case there for the Bills if they need it and the Patriots don't. But I will make a little case for Cleveland and the Cleveland fans this week. If you can put together a perfect storm, let's say Myles Garrett really rolls. He's got 9 sacks. He puts big-time pressure on Brady and gets to him, forces a couple, maybe a turnover or makes some big plays. Like I said, he's got 9 sacks. Baker actually steps it up. Nick Chubb is running wild, He's been fantastic. So I don't know. Maybe if you have all that together, the Browns can make a case. I mean, look, we never expected what we thought we saw and what we did see when the Browns went into Baltimore and rolled the Ravens. And look what the Ravens are doing now. So anything can happen any week in the NFL. I'm definitely not saying it's going to happen, but I'll make, like I said, a little case for Cleveland this week and a bigger case for the Bills at the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I can see your point about Cleveland. I mean, there's a lot of ifs, obviously, but if the defense can win the battle at the line, if the New England Patriots are still without a couple of playmakers that they were without this past week, because let's face it, the defense did most of the work.
Yeah.
But my only fear is that Baker Mayfield's going to get picked 2 or 3 times here, trying to make a play against this secondary.
What's he got? 11 picks this year, I think.
Too many.
5 touchdowns. Not enough. It's bad. But this is maybe this is the week where he can turn it around. I don't really see it because, like you said, this Patriots defense is off the charts. Really, they really are. But I mean, what they did in Baltimore was very impressive. So I don't know. Maybe.
All right. Okay. We'll leave it with a maybe. I talked about the Eagles. I don't think they get it done against the Patriots. The Eagles really didn't get it done against the Dallas Cowboys this past weekend. I thought that was a really good spot for them. I even bet them on the money line, and boy, I couldn't have been more wrong. Also couldn't have been more wrong about the Bears. Mitchell Trubisky looked exactly like he's looked all season. Very, very disappointing. But I think maybe the biggest disappointment I had was the Seattle Seahawks, man. And Lamar Jackson ran wild over them. I talked about it last week. I said if they can take away the run game and make him throw the ball, well, they took away some of the running backs, but they didn't take away Lamar Jackson's legs. And Russell Wilson had one of the worst interceptions you'll see of all time. I mean, that's rare for him.
Yeah.
It was just unfortunate in that part of the game. But, it's
look, you can't always you always can't rely. I mean, Seattle relies so much on Russell Wilson to get everything done, and he does so much, and that was a bad pick 6. But you know what? I also give it to coaching. John Harbaugh, can we say that he's better than his brother at coaching? I mean, how about that call? 13-13, 9 minutes to go in the third, 4th and 2 from the Seattle 6-yard line, and they're about to kick the field goal to go up a field goal, and he calls timeout and says, you know what, screw it. We're going for this. We're getting this first down. Jackson runs to the right, and he scores a touchdown, and the rest is history from that point on. They just dominated the rest of the game, won convincingly by 2 touchdowns. What a call at that juncture of the game.
And a couple of things about that. There's a clip going around the internet where he looks at Jackson and says, hey, you want to do this? So, you can tell they have a great relationship. He trusts his quarterback, and he empowers his quarterback. And that means so much in this day and age where you have a coach who's not about ranting and raving. By the way, we should talk about Jeremy Pruitt, the way he acted this weekend. That was disgraceful.
Sure.
Did you see that?
Yeah. Awful.
I was really disappointed with that. Obviously, his quarterback kind of, went on his own playbook or whatever. But for him to react that way and grab him by the face mask and tear a strip off him, you're a grown man. He's just a kid.
Sure. Yep.
I thought that was bad.
That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen anymore. That's sort of the thing that you don't see that anymore, but it happened last week.
Yeah, it did. But back to Harbaugh, the complete opposite of patting his guy in the back, lifting him up and putting it in his hands. And Jackson made it look very, very easy.
I mean, and doing it in Seattle, the way he's just taking off running. Seattle didn't know what to go left, right, up, down. He was just ripping them to shreds on the ground.
So yeah, those are the 3. The Seahawks, the Bears, the Eagles hurt me this week a lot. I had a lot of money on the Seahawks.
I know me and you were both on the Eagles. What a disappointment, I mean, they are in total disarray. They came out flat against the Vikings in Minnesota the week before. Dallas loses to the Jets. So you figure the Eagles will, at least rebound. This would have been a game that's close, that's going to come down to the wire if worst case scenario. They were, again, never in the game. This is 2 weeks in a row. I think, we need to, call out Wentz when we have to now. Enough's enough. You're not hurt. you're supposed to be an MVP candidate year in, year out. You're just not getting it done. I know there's Deshaun Jackson is still injured, not in there, but you still got to be able to move the ball. They were down from the get-go 2 weeks in a row. It's very disappointing. I had the Eagles in the contest too, and I had them on the show here with you. I just really thought they'd rebound, and they were awful from the get-go. I did have on Guys and Bets on Friday, I gave out as my best bet the Giants Cardinal game over 50. You and I were messaging back and forth about that, and I probably jinxed myself when it was 17-0 right off the bat, and I had 31 points, Chris. I know it was raining and everything there, but I had 31 points with almost 10 minutes left in the second quarter, and I need over 50, and I don't get there. Chandler Jones was fantastic. He had 4 sacks and forced that fumble late in the game as he took down Jones. And the guy for Arizona, the defensive guy, had the ball. Just pick it up and run it in. He fumbles around, and then it took a second for him to grab the ball, and then the Giants reacted and tackled him, and that would have been it. But fell 2 points short there. That was rough. Mississippi State, I know you liked LSU. You got me again. I had Mississippi State plus 18.5. They lose by 23. Burrow was just great in the second half. The guy's amazing. We'll talk about him more later. And I got a late touchdown, but still lost that one by 5. And Louisville, I had plus 24. They played so tough in the first half, but they give up in 40 seconds. Clemson goes down the field before halftime. Trevor Lawrence throws up a Hail Mary basically at the back of the end zone. It's caught for a touchdown. And that really, I think, deflated Louisville moving into the second half. Dabo didn't stop the whole game. He did it again. And I actually get a late touchdown. And if I get one hold late, I get the ball back with 2-3 minutes. Louisville couldn't stop him. Clemson came all the way downfield, scored, and then I was toast on that one too.
Yeah, the thing with that is, and I texted you early in the game. I think you texted me. You're like, Louisville's holding Clemson down, Louisville's holding Clemson down. And I said, yeah, you know what? And Louisville was still plus 21.5. I was like, I'll get in on them now.
Yeah.
And then
Lawrence got picked off twice in the first quarter.
Yeah, it was like as soon as I put the bet in, it went the other way.
Yeah, sorry, bud. I owe you one.
No, it's
I owe you a couple.
That's just how my week started to go. I think that might have been the turn. I think I was good until that happened. But the thing is, if Louisville scores at all in that game, they cover. Yeah. They scored 60 the previous week against Wake Forest. Obviously, Wake Forest is not Clemson, but their offense was just non-existent. So that was disappointing.
Yeah, I just thought, took a shot there with 2 big dogs, Mississippi State and Louisville, that were hanging. And then, again, we discussed this. When you go against the best teams in college football, you could be looking okay for 3 quarters. But that one quarter, if you give up 21, 24, 28 in that one quarter that you just tank in, that could mean that a lot of times means the difference in the spread.
Yeah, it really does. But you know what? It wasn't all doom and gloom, especially in college football. We had the Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns on Thursday night. That was an easy win. We had Ohio State Friday night. That was an easy cover. Florida, it was dicey for a little bit. They got it done. Oklahoma, West Virginia, over. We had all of those. Oregon pulls it out, minus 3.5. They win by 4. You had the great pick on UCLA with all the quarterback trouble. Yeah. Goodness, who was it they were playing again on the third-string quarterback? Stanford, that's right.
Yeah.
You hit it.
I actually had UCLA in the contest, too, the Golden Nugget, because when they come out with the lines on Wednesday, they were plus 7. And then the line, we were texting, and the line had dropped down to what, 3? I'd seen down to 3, so I had to take the Bruins at plus 7. So that was a nice win to get one right off the bat on Thursday night.
You have any other college wins that I neglected to mention?
I did have on one of my. It was also I gave it out on our show, but also in my hidden gems articles on Oddshark. I gave out Memphis Tulane over 59 and 47-17. The game goes over, and I touted the Memphis running back last Wednesday too. Kenny Gainwell said that he was going to be almost over 1,000 yards already for the season. Chris, he went for 3 total touchdowns and 300 total yards.
Wow. Gained well.
And he gained well, all right.
Yeah.
300 yards, 3 touchdowns, helping Memphis get me that over. And I also had Memphis in the contest too, so that was it was nice to get a blowout win.
What a name for a running back. You got to love that. Yeah, so I mean, what we did pretty good overall. Now it was Sunday when I got in trouble, but Saturday was a pretty good one. So Harry, let's move on to everyone's favorite time of the show, the big hogs and underdogs. And I know I'm noticing one thing. The further we get along in the season, it's hard to identify these underdogs. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I was again this week. I know we love doing this part of the show, but I couldn't come up with a ton. I couldn't come up with a ton. I know we're on the same side in the NFL game we're going to discuss in a second. I do like Washington State here though at +14 at Oregon. Oregon's coming off that big win, like you just mentioned. Washington State had lost a couple in a row, but they had a nice bounce back win last week against Colorado. They blew them out, beat them by 31. The Cougars own Oregon, believe it or not, lately. They've won 4 in a row by an average of 16 points during that time. Washington State is first in the NCAA in passing yards. Anthony Gordon has 3,000 yards already. 3,000. He's got 29 touchdowns. So in this spot, I just like the points here. I think it seems like a lot here, and I do like how they bounce back, like I said, and won last week. Washington State is 9-0, Chris, against the spread in their last 9 games against Oregon. That's pretty amazing. So I'm going to take the 14 here. I know it's on the road, but I can't go against those numbers, so I'm going to take Washington State plus the 14.
I've been tracking on my Twitter account as well the best spread records over the last 2 seasons, so from the start of 2018. And Washington State is on that list. They're like top 6 or 7 in the country at covering spreads, so got to like that. I know we've both looked, obviously, it's a huge game this week. Wisconsin at Ohio State. I don't know. 14 seems too low. I might be convinced to get on Wisconsin later in the week, depending on where the number goes. But Ohio State's just rolling over everybody. So we'll see how that goes. But one that I do like, and I'm a little bit surprised at this number, but also not. It's maybe 2 of the biggest public teams in the country. You've got Notre Dame going to Michigan to face the other Harbaugh, who's not so good. And Notre Dame's a 1-point underdog here. So not a huge dog, but it does qualify them for the big hogs and underdogs section. And I think they're going to get it done, man. When you look at Michigan's defensive numbers, they're really, really bad. Like in the 80s and 90s ranked in the nation. Like you're supposed to be a contender.
Traditionally, they're always in the last. I want to say they've had a top 10 defense the last 5 years. It's just been disappointing to see. And last week, I will say this: when they were down, they down 28-7. Yep. They did fight back to make it 28-21 to cover the spread, and did have a little shot at the end to get knotted up and have the game go to overtime. So for that, I don't think they're quitting on Harbaugh, but still another loss. That's 2 losses this season, and could have lost other games. And a lot more on the line here, I think, at this juncture for Notre Dame. So I agree with you here.
So, yeah, that's about it. I mean, we'll keep looking and we'll tweet about it as the week goes on. But early on, like Texas opened as an underdog, but they're over. That's jumped the fence now at TCU. I gave that out on the show earlier this week. So
where was their defense last week? Where was their defense against Kansas?
Where's it been all year is the problem.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that scares me about Texas right now. Their offense is rolling, but they can't stop anybody like Kansas State. Oh, God.
Yeah.
It might have been the only thing I'm thinking, it's a bit of a letdown. You have the Red River game the week before. You've got TCU on the horizon. I hate making excuses for these guys because you really shouldn't. But I don't know. I just think they're a better team. TCU is like 3-11 against the spread in their last 14 conference games, something like that.
Yeah, it's just, but it's also it's like you can't. It's very tough to take Texas with the defense the way it's been. It also I know going back to the LSU game, that's what I said was going to be their. That's why they were going to lose that game. It's basically what happened. Burrow ripped them to shreds, and they haven't been that good the rest of the season.
Now, while we're in this section, one of yours last week was Mississippi State, and they ran into Joe Burrow and LSU. And so much so that you were inspired to write an article about Joe Burrow. Are you the president now of the Joe Burrow fan club or what?
Well, you know what? I wouldn't say that, but I'm rooting for the guy. He was nowhere to be found, Heisman talk-wise, to start the season. In the off season, he had a nice year last year. LSU had a nice year last year, winning their bowl game. He had, I want to say, he had 12 touchdowns, 4 picks, 2,500 yards. He's already surpassed that by week 5 this season, and he's just been unbelievable. And I just think that he's the reason why this team is right there, number 2 in the country, and has a great shot at they got to get through Auburn this week, but in 2 weeks they have a bye after that week, and then they have the head-to-head showdown against Alabama.
Yeah, it's a huge few weeks. Auburn's defense has been tough too, but I think I still got to go with LSU this week. It's surprising that LSU, the hallmark was their defense for such a long time, and now it's their offense, and their defense has only been average.
No, right, exactly. I mean, they've got a couple. Del Pitt is a All-American safety that they have on their team, but also, you see these teams, Chris, like the teams from the Conference USA, the teams from the those type of conferences that lead the nation in total offense, because there just isn't any defensive players or anything like that. You don't usually see that from a top 5 conference team. LSU is the second-rated offense in NCAA right now.
Oh,
second.
Can't stop them. They're unbelievable.
Can't stop them. I mean, they actually for all that was said in the Mississippi State game last week, Mississippi State actually held them to the lowest point total of the year.
Yeah. And it didn't look good for LSU to cover early on. Then they kind of turned it on. All right, let's take a look at NFL underdogs. Again, nothing that really stands out to me. Oakland's been a really good zigzag team here, and they're plus 6.5 this weekend. Derek Carr's looked fine, to be honest, and Josh Jacobs have been outstanding. I think the number 8 rushing attack in the country for Oakland. So I'm keeping an eye on that. I'm not saying I'm playing it for sure. Keep an eye on my Twitter account. I think I might like Tampa Bay coming out of the bye a little bit.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Here, my take on Tampa Bay is what do we know they can do for sure? We know they can score points if Jameis is playing half decent. And this Tennessee offense, Ryan Tannehill, man, I don't know. I don't know if they can keep up with the Tampa Bay offense. That's the only thing I got there. That's the only thing I got. But I think let
me ask you this: Would you be happy if Jameis Winston went for let's say, would you be confident if he went for 300, 2 touchdowns, and 2 picks?
Yes.
3 picks?
Now I'm a little nervous. Does he still have the 2 touchdowns? I don't know.
He still has 2 touchdowns, but he has 3 picks.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's so, look, they could have won that game in London when they played Carolina. Mm-hmm. They could have won that game, but too many turnovers.
Yeah.
They scored. You're right. They could score, but the turnovers killed them that game.
It absolutely did. Speaking of the Carolina Panthers, Harry, I think you do too, because I think I heard you on Clay Travis's show talk about this, and I was thinking about it beforehand. I think the Carolina Panthers could be a sneaky play in San Francisco this week. What do you think?
Oh, I agree as well. Since Cam has went down, Carolina hasn't lost. They've won 4 in a row by an average of 30. Then they're scoring 31 points a game during those wins. 2 of them have been on the road. It's just been the team just continues to have confidence in Scottsdale, Arizona's own Kyle Allen, and he's just been phenomenal. He played at the end of the season last year when Cam was done for the season. He still doesn't have an interception to his credit in the NFL. He's got 7 touchdown passes, and he's leading this team down the field. And look, McCaffrey's just an MVP candidate who's just a stud who's going to go over 1,000 yards for the season already. And with his next touchdown, he'll already be at double digits. So I think absolutely here, Carolina can win this game.
You've got the addition of Emmanuel Sanders for the 49ers. I think that's big, although I don't know that Jimmy Garoppolo is the best arm to have back there. You got Deebo Samuel, who's questionable. Matt Breida is questionable. They're coming off the Pneumonia Bowl out in Washington last week while Carolina was on a bye, sitting around on the beach, presumably, maybe practicing a little bit. So I think this is a really good spot. San Francisco's got 3 divisional games coming up after this one. And beside that, this Carolina team is pretty good. And I think they might be the best team that San Francisco has seen so far. I mean, you look at who the 49ers have played: Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, the Rams. That was a really good win for the 49ers. I have to give them that, but the Rams have been on a downslide. And then, of course, that game that was played in terrible elements against Washington that they won 9-0. Which, by the way, talking about bad beats, man, I had San Francisco -10 in that game.
So that's rough. I mean, you pitch a shutout and you don't get there.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. Okay. Is there any other underdogs that we have neglected to talk about here that we like?
I'm good. I don't have, like I said, this week it's tough for me, and usually I'm all over it. So I haven't sat down and looked exactly at what I'm going to take in the Nugget contest yet. I probably will go with Washington State. But otherwise, other dogs, I don't know yet, Chris. I still got to figure this out because I usually like taking them. I don't want to have to take favorites, but I'm going to have to really dissect it tonight.
Okay. Well, while we're on the NFL, let's stick with whatever NFL plays we like this week. I will start. I'm going back on the Seattle Seahawks. They're -3.5 at Atlanta, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They've been really good on the road, perfect as a matter of fact. And Matt Ryan is questionable. They just traded Mohamed Sanu, and they're down a running back, Smith, right? So I don't understand why this line is what it is. Atlanta, for my money, has been worse than Miami this year. So I love the Seahawks here.
Yeah, you know what? I like this game. I like the Seahawks too, especially bouncing back after the loss like we discussed against the Ravens. But I'm leaning a little bit also, Chris, towards the over in this game. I've seen 52.5 now. I know Matt Ryan is questionable, like you said. If it's not him, it's Matt Schaub, journeyman, 38 years old. Threw a touchdown last week in garbage time. I think he'll be able to put up a couple scores against Seattle at home. But also Atlanta in their last 3 games, Chris, has given up 53, 34, and 37. I see Seattle bouncing back, and if Atlanta can get a couple touchdowns, I think Seattle runs wild here. Russell Wilson goes nuts, and I'll take the over 52 here. You can't. And also, it's one of those things where can you really take an under in an Atlanta Falcons game?
No, because they can't keep the ball out of their end zone, and they have the ability, especially if Matt Ryan's playing, to score.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a little shot there with the over.
Okay, cool. I am going to fade the Philadelphia Eagles this week. They have not proven they're able to do anything, and now they're going to run up against Buffalo's defense. Buffalo -2 at home. I think the Bills, had they walked over Miami last week, would have been susceptible to a Philadelphia win here. But I think Miami kept that game close enough that Buffalo's got enough to work on and get their heads on straight coming into this game. So I like them at home here, -2. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that game.
You know what? I can see that too. I mean, again, that was my game last week to stay away from, was the Bills-Miami game. And again, that's the second week in a row when we've discussed this. I have another game later on in the show to discuss, but this is 2 weeks in a row where the spread has come down to the very end, of the game, depending on what happened. So, yeah, I mean, it was 2 weeks ago. It was the Chargers in Tennessee, and then last week the Bills, Dolphins. So, I mean, I think the Bills still haven't proved a ton. I mean, they are one loss only, but the teams they've beaten are pretty weak. The best team they beat was the Titans.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then my last pick, even though Adam Thielen was announced today that he will not play Thursday night, I'm going to take Minnesota on the spread here. They've been unbelievable at home, beating teams by this number or more. and they've got Washington coming in. And I think you're going to see, a lot of turnovers from the Washington offense. And I'm going to say Kirk Cousins goes off again, man. What a resurgence for this guy. So Minnesota minus 16 at home for me. I know you hate big numbers like that.
Well, you know what? Here I can see that because, look, you're right. 3 weeks in a row, Cousins has been unbelievable. He's got 13 touchdowns for the season, 3 picks. Can't argue and be upset with that. The 3 games, and I know we discussed this a week ago or two, the Vikings have been unbelievable at home. They are probably the best team in the NFL at home this season, where they're just rolling. All 3, I sort of like the Vikings minus 7.5 here first half, because in their 3 previous home games, they've been leading by double digits in all 3 games. They've covered the spread in the first half in all 3 games. And now you got Washington in town, who can't put together anything. So I think I'm definitely with you on the Vikings here. I like the Carolina-San Francisco game over 41.5. I know we discussed a little bit about McCaffrey having a big season. Allen doing well. San Francisco has the 8th best offense in the NFL, 2nd best rushing attack. If Breida goes, he's averaging almost 6 yards a game. And Emmanuel Sanders will be a huge addition to offset Kittle's leading receptions for the San Francisco. He's got like 34 receptions. So I think that could be huge too. So I like that game over. And I like the Colts minus 6. Denver's given up, I think, dumping Emmanuel Sanders for draft picks. Indy's defense is okay. It bends, but it doesn't break. Brissett leads this team. He knew how to find tight ends this past week. Eric Ebron was great. He leads his team down the field. They have decent running attack. And again, I think the Broncos, like I said, have packed it in. They're just 3-8 against the spread in the last 11 road games as a dog. Colts minus 6 here. I think it's almost a steal. I don't know what Denver can do in terms of offense. Flacco's been awful. He's got 6 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. And who had wide receiver Zach Pascal for the Colts last week? Over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Anybody have him in fantasy? I'm thinking of picking him up. I need a lot of help this week.
Yeah.
I got smoked last week in fantasy. So, but still, I think the Colts minus 6. I think it's like a steal here. Denver's given up.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that one. I love it.
How bad do they look on Thursday?
Oh, it was hard to watch, man. It was hard. It was really hard to watch. Well, we'll go from.
I understand bounce back teams, bounce back weeks, but when you don't have any offense, how are you going to bounce back when you have no offense?
Well, Flacco's checked out, and the crazy thing to me is that they were playing against one of the worst running defenses in the league. And on short yardage situations, instead of going to Philip Lindsay, like we talked about this last week, who was one of the best backs in the NFL, you keep making these short passes with Joe Flacco, who does not want to be out there.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, they couldn't run the ball at all. I mean, maybe Kansas City played inspired with Mahomes going out with the injury. I get it, and maybe that was part of it. And Kansas City's rush defense looked fantastic. But more than them looking fantastic, I think Denver's offense looked terrible.
I'm with you, and that's why I don't mind Green Bay Sunday night either, especially if Mahomes isn't going at 4.5. Yeah. And they came out on Wednesday and said that Mahomes is practicing. He's not ruled out, so that should keep the line pretty good, actually, for anyone who's interested in Green Bay. All right, well, we talked about the Denver Broncos. Let's go from one horse team to another. I'm going to go in college. I really like SMU to cover against Houston, minus 14. Houston is shutting it down with De'Aaron King redshirting for the rest of the year. Dana Holgerson, I don't know, he can't get the top draft pick, but I guess he must have a better class coming next season. Meanwhile, SMU is 7-0, and they're 6-1 against the spread. They've actually been a phenomenal bet this year. They're 3-0 against the spread on the road. Meanwhile, Houston 0-2 against the spread at home. And I just think this is a beautiful spot for SMU on Thursday night.
It'll be interesting to see down the road what SMU does, who they get in their bowl game. Because whoever they play, whatever bowl they're in, they're going to be pumped. I mean, that may be a play because their offense is that good. They
are. Let's see. What else did I have in college? Let's see. Appalachian State minus 26.5, down to 26 right now. But I talked earlier about the teams that are the best against the spread, and it's two teams from the Sun Belt. It's them and the Ragin' Cajuns. So I'm going to ride with the Mountaineers, right?
The Mountaineers.
That's
Can't
right.
argue with them. They've been one of my wonderful teams this year. So I can't argue with that. But that's a big chunk. That's a big number there. Who they got? South Alabama?
South Alabama, yeah. Appalachian State 6-0, 5-1 against the spread. And the Oddshark supercomputer has them winning by 31 points, if that matters to anybody.
Watch out for Cephas Johnson, though, the quarterback for South Alabama. He outplayed Adrian Martinez against Nebraska in week 1 of the season. But yeah, Appalachian State they have a machine. They're a machine on offense, so they're pretty good.
They're the number 10 scoring offense in the country. They're putting up 41 points per game. Now, like we talked about, the opposition matters. But South Alabama are the 125th scoring offense. They're not scoring at all. And the number 95 scoring defense. So I think this is going to be a rout.
Okay.
And I had one other play that I liked, and it's Oklahoma, minus 23.5. These guys are on an absolute tear. I'm completely happy. I think I'm on the Sooner bandwagon, and they're going to Kansas State. I bet on Kansas State a couple of weeks ago, and they were one of the worst football teams I had ever seen in my life. So I'm backing my boy Jalen Hurts at the number 3 offense against K-State here.
Any with all your connections, Chris, any shot you can get me riding the wagon or controlling the wagons for Oklahoma after last week's ordeal when the thing flipped?
It might be a couple of openings there, but like I was watching that game. I watched the whole game, and in the pregame, Jenny Taft was riding in the back of that, and they went out and they did the thing, and everything was fine. And then they come back from that commercial, obviously, and the thing tipped over. Now, she wasn't in the back. Somebody was, though, because you could see them.
Yeah. Oh, they went flying, right?
Yeah.
Thank God no one hurt, but that could have been really bad.
It was really bad. It like ripped up the turf too. I thought we were in for a longer delay than like there was these big like track marks from the sled like tore up the turf. I was really surprised.
But you were watching. How long was the delay? Just wondering. I didn't even pay attention, but I mean, how long was it?
No, not long at all. Like it happened during the commercial break, and then when it came back from the commercial, then they were cleaning it up, and they showed the replay, and everything was fine. I'm going to say it was like 2 to 3 minutes maximum. I thought it would have been longer. I really, really did. So those are the plays I'm looking at in college this week. What do you got?
I'm going to go back to an LSU game, and I'm going to take them this week. I'm not going to go against them. Can't. Joe Burrow's too good, man. I'm going to lay the 10.5 against Auburn. Auburn is 0-9 in its last 9 trips to Death Valley. Like I said, LSU is 2nd overall in NCAA in passing yards. Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, wide receivers for LSU, they both have 9 touchdown receptions. I don't know who has even close to that in terms of that type of number. And again, I wrote that article this week on Oddshark about Joe Burrow and his amazing run, where he's currently the leader for the Heisman Trophy when he wasn't even listed, or he was at some places, at some books, at the turn of the new year at like 200-1. So I'm going to lay the points here with LSU, 10.5 against Auburn. Burrow had a great comeback too last year. They beat where he came back from 11 down in the second half, late in the third, beat Auburn by 1. I think they pound them here, leading into the Alabama game in 2 weeks. And also I'm going to lay the 14.5 with Ohio State. Usually I'm not a big favorite guy, but of course, I know we discussed it earlier in the week. You just can't go against Ohio State. They're too good. Everything about them is good. Justin Fields, 30 total touchdowns, 1 interception. He could have so much more in the second half in these games. Ohio State's offense is just they pack it in and just call it quits. I mean, they've given up basically no points on defense. If you look at their games in the past, they really shut out Michigan State a couple weeks ago. I just think that they're too good, and I think Minnesota is right now leading the western part of the Big Ten to play Ohio State in the championship. And if Wisconsin loses this game or is losing this game late, they may tank it because that'll be 2 losses for them, and Minnesota doesn't have a loss yet. So laying the 14.5 here, I'm going to do it with Ohio State because Like, again, if they're losing and it's somewhat close, but it could be out of reach with a score too late, I think they may do that against Wisconsin, because this could be it for Wisconsin. They really shot themselves in the foot losing to Illinois last week.
Here's the big thing about Ohio State, right? They're 6-1 against the spread. The only week they didn't cover was week 1, when they went up like 28-0 on Florida Atlantic, and there was a bad backdoor.
Yeah.
Right.
So
they were 14.5 point favorite against Cincinnati, won 42-0. 18-point favorite against Indiana, won 51-10. 38-point favorite against Miami of Ohio, and they won by 70. 17-point favorite against Nebraska, they won by 31. 20-point favorite against Michigan State, they won by 24. That was the closest they had. They were a 27-point favorite against Northwestern, beat them by 49. So not only are they covering spreads, Harry, they're kicking the shit out of their opponents.
You can't. That's all I'm saying, is that you cannot go against, and you can't make a case to go against them. You really can't.
All right. So I already said let's see.
Oh, I did have another. I forgot, Chris. I do have a money line parlay in the NFL.
Okay.
That pays even money. It's a 3-teamer. The Saints at -430. Bridgewater has been awesome leading this team. I know there's been a chance that Breeze could come back this week, but I don't. I think they're still going to go with Bridgewater. The Cardinals are playing back-to-back 10 a.m. games on the West Coast when they're on the East Coast. I know they've won 3 in a row, but not in New Orleans. Bridgewater's last 3 games, he got 7 touchdowns and only 1 pick. Saints -430. Seahawks -270. I know we went over that. Russell Wilson doesn't lose back-to-back games. Since the Super Bowl era, he is the number 1 quarterback to not lose back-to-back games. He wins that back after a loss, wins that game 82% of the time. And we've discussed the Falcons' problems. I think the Seahawks go in there and roll them. And the Rams at -600 against the Bengals in London. It was nice to see the Rams get a bounce-back win last week. They look good on offense. Goff looked pretty good too. Since he is winless and they can't get anything going. So that's Saints -430, Seahawks -270, Rams -600, pays even money.
Oh, that's not bad at all, actually. Spread-wise, I've got no interest in that Cincinnati Rams game. I've got no interest. We haven't talked about this game at all. The Chargers and the Bears, no interest in touching either of those teams. Anything that you're staying away from this week?
I'm staying away. I'm staying away from your Tampa game, the Tampa-Tennessee game.
I can see that.
You can't trust Winston. Again, look what he did in London. They could have won the game. It was his fault. They lost through some terrible picks. Tennessee, I've been wrong with on basically every week. And again, 2 weeks ago, my game to stay away from was Chargers-Tennessee. Chargers were at the 1-yard line. They had 3 shots at the end of the game, meant the spread, and they couldn't punch it in. So thank God I wasn't on that. But again, look, Tampa, what they did against Carolina was bad, but the week before that, they put up 55 in Los Angeles against the Rams. So, I mean, what are you going to get here? Bruce Arians, if he had any hair left, he'd be ripping it out of his head because you don't know what you're going to get with Jameis Winston. You don't know what you're going to get with that defense. So that's the game I'm staying away from, Tampa, Tennessee this week.
No, I completely understand that. Mine was more so because I needed to pick an underdog for the show. That's why I did it. Okay, Harry, before we get out of here, NBA tipped off last night. You're going to the Phoenix game tonight. You've got some season-long bets you've got locked in or are going to lock in. What's on the go?
Well, yeah, I discussed this with Clay on Outkick the Coverage, too. He asked me who I like this year. And I think at 3-1, you can still find 3-1, the Clippers to win the championship. I mean, I don't like what Houston – I don't like Houston's lineup there in terms of – I don't know how those guys are going to get along for the whole season. If they're going to demand the ball, who's going to take all the shots. I don't think it's going to be good. The Lakers bench is terrible. The Clippers go like 9 deep, 10 deep. They proved it last night. I think they outscored the Lakers already in game one, like 70 points to 19 from the bench. And Paul George didn't even play. They picked up Mo Harkless from Portland. He was big last year in the playoffs as he put in valuable minutes against Golden State in the Western Conference Final. Montrezl Harrell, he got 17 points a game. And Lou Williams got 21 points last night. He averages 20 points a game too. I think this Clipper team is stacked. So at 3-1, I got the Clippers to win to the championship. And also at 9-1, the NBA Finals, in my opinion, is going to be Clippers versus the Sixers. The Sixers played better than anybody against the Raptors in the playoffs last year. That includes Golden State and Milwaukee. They re-signed Tobias Harris. I think that's huge. They also signed Josh Richardson. They picked him up from Miami. And Joel Embiid has a lot to prove after he sort of tanked in the playoffs last year. So I think Philly's going to be the team to beat. In the East, the Celtics may be a better team in the locker room, but not on the court, losing Kyrie. Overall, I think the Sixers take the East. I think it's Sixers, Clippers at 9-1 for the NBA championship.
All right. Okay. And I'd be remiss, because I am a hockey guy and you are an Arizona Coyotes season ticket holder, if we did not talk about your over theory and how it's been going so far and where the spots are coming up this weekend.
First off, how about the Coyotes on this East Coast trip? Not too bad.
Yeah, no, it's they've looked really, really good. I had the under in their game against the Rangers, and that hit, and I should have took them on the money line. They were minus 120. They haven't let in more than 2 goals, or Darcy Kemper hasn't let in more than 2 goals.
Spectacular. Being in Phoenix, they still don't get talked about too much, but still, we'll see how that goes as the season goes along. But my over theory, well, now there's nothing, it hasn't been anything for a while, but it's 3-1. And that is when either the Blue Jackets, Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh play each other. Just take the over. When those teams play, more than not, it's going to be 6.5. But I can see 4-3 is written all over the board here. I got 2 games on Saturday. It's Blue Jackets at Philly, Toronto's at Montreal, and then on the 29th, Philly plays Pittsburgh. So that's the next 3 that are in line. 2 games on Saturday, and then on the 29th, again, we got Philly, Pittsburgh. But those overs, whenever those 2 teams play, right now for the season, Chris, it's 3-1.
Oh, well, you're the man.
Hey, I'm just looking. I know hockey. I don't know it even close as much as you do, but I'm just saying that happens to work a lot. It worked last year. I'm on it again this year.
Hey, and it's working so far. Okay. Harry Gagnon, you are everywhere these days. Where can people find you besides this podcast?
You can find me Against All Odds podcast with Cousin Sal. This past week, we did our NBA preview with a future bet. So with Bill Simmons, and that's on the Ringer Podcast Network. I'll kick the coverage on Wednesdays. Me and Clay Travis discuss whatever's going on in the world of sports. And Friday, I'll be on with you and Joe and Pamela on Guys and Bets.
Awesome, man. On Twitter, you're at AAO Harry. You can get this podcast anywhere you get fine podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, anywhere else. You can get the video version on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Oddshark or search Guys and Bets, and you will find it there. I am Kris Abbott. You can find me on Oddshark at Kris, K-R-I-S, Oddshark. And anything else, Harry? What do you got going up over on the site this week?
I got my hidden gems. Again, I went 3-1 last week, Chris. And since I've been doing this, I want to say it's been 4 or 5 weeks now. I haven't had a losing week on that. I also have 7 picks, 4 college, 3 pro on why I like those games. And again, the Joe Burrow article about him right now being the leader in the Heisman Trophy candidate award odds.
All right, perfect. Harry, let's end it there. We'll do it again next week. We'll see you on Friday on Guys and Bets, which people can find noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific on YouTube. For now, that is episode 8 of Bald Bets and Beyond. Thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
Go Suns!